I hope that Russia is thinking carefully about its continued alliance with Bashar al-Assad, because every time one of these horrific attacks occurs, it draws Russia closer into some level of responsibility.
Tillerson's criticism may make discussions a little awkward. As CEO of Exxon, Tillerson made deals with Russian oil companies and the Russian government itself worth hundreds of billions of dollars, and it endeared him to President Putin, who awarded him with Russia's Order of Friendship, the highest honor that can be given to foreigners. For more on this, I'm joined by Rebecca Grant, national security analyst and president of Iris Independent Research. We also have Mark Ginsburg, former White House Mideast policy advisor. Mark, we'll start with you on this. Rex Tillerson, the right person to be there, and what can he get out of Russia?
Hi, Richard. Well, the fact is that he's on his way, and he's trying to get the G7 countries aligned with a better approach collectively to try to deal with Russia on Syria. But what's lost in the equation here, Richard, is that while Mr. Tillerson is on his way to Russia, the fact is that Russia's really interested in Assad for three reasons. Their military bases on the Mediterranean, the fact that Russia was the largest exporter of arms to Syria and made most of its foreign currency off of those sales. And number three, because he represents a Shiite bulwark against Sunni terrorism. The real culprit here, in addition to Russia, is Iran. No one's talking about Iran. Iran has a far greater vested interest in Assad's longevity than Russia. Yeah,
and on that note, which you're very well here aware of here, Ambassador, is that they had a joint statement coming from Iran today, coming from Hezbollah on this very issue in Syria against the United States. And to you on that, Rebecca, has this congealed, if you will, this relationship that Russia has with Syria, also Iran, as Ambassador Ginsburg was talking about?
Well, Iran and Hezbollah have been congealed for a long time. What's different now with Russia, I think Tillerson's message is, Russia, your days of playing around in Syria with no consequences are coming to an end. So Tillerson will be looking to take that message. That's the public message. The cruise missile strikes put him in a strong position to make that. Now, privately, he's going to use everything he knows about Russia to try to look for some kind of deal. That's what's really new. Trump administration now really wants to move forward more quickly on Syria, and Tillerson's going to have to go look for the groundwork to make that kind of deal.
Does his history, his mixed history, which I talked about at the lead into this segment, help or hurt him more? What's the net on that, you believe, Rebecca?
I think it's a net positive for Tillerson. Right. He knows what he's going into. He knows that groundwork. He knows the game. He knows the adversary.
He knows the players.
The adversary. He does.
He knows the players. KT McFarland, Mark Ginsburg. When we look at this, what does that tell you about the way this administration is evolving when it comes to international affairs? When we look at, again, the National Security Council as it's evolving, what do you make from the KT McFarland piece of news today?
Well, I think she was a highly partisan person who was put in there by Michael Flynn, the disgraced former national security advisor. And Mr. McMaster, General McMaster, wants his own team in there. Look, that #2 job is probably the most essential deputy in any deputy position in the U.S. government. That organization that is known as the Deputies Committee has got to be chaired by a highly competent, highly respected individual who has interagency experience. I'm afraid that Mr. McFarland, who's very well regarded as a foreign policy thinker, is not necessarily the best manager.
You know, Mark, Ambassador Ginsburg, if you will, I want to also talk on this other topic that is happening at the very same time, and that is the carrier group Vincent moving into the Korean Peninsula. This is simultaneous with Tillerson now going to Moscow to meet again with his counterpart. What do you make of the carrier group moving there and the options that have been discussed, at least put out there, that we have heard here at NBC News? Those three options, placing U.S. nuclear weapons in South Korea, again, that aggressive show of force. The second option, target and kill North Korea's leader, that also part of it. And then, again, the third option, covert action. What do you make of all that's happening and what we're hearing about the Korean Peninsula?
Well, Richard, let's take the TikTok. First of all, there was the missile launches by North Korea. We sent an anti-ballistic missile system to South Korea. The Chinese reacted very negatively to that. There was a summit meeting between President Xi and President Trump. They clearly had to have reached a tentative understanding, not an agreement, understanding. And now the United States essentially is going to flex its muscles more because these missile launches continue by North Korea. Look, in the end, no one has a good answer here, Richard, as to what to do.
Yeah.
If someone did, we'd hear about it by now.
Yeah, it's been many years that they've been working on it. Rebecca, your thought on what Ambassador Ginsburg said there, do you agree?
Agree. So good move, 7th Fleet, putting the Vinson strike group. This is just a standard rotation, putting more pressure, continued pressure on North Korea. We've got forces in South Korea, THAAD, etc., and the carrier group just again shows that we are keeping our military pressure on as we work that really tough international situation.
Rebecca Grant, Ambassador Mark Ginsburg, thank you.
Thank you, Richard.
All right, next for you, attacks in Egypt.